How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Hack Slash Super Sidekick Sleepover Slaughter, the prologue. And yeah, I was kind of debating, like, should I do a separate video for the prologue or not? And, you know, this is a comprehensive review series, and I do think the prologue is very much its own little story, and it has some interesting ideas, and it's probably worth talking about on its own. This is a hack-slash story where Cassie and Vlad are seen at the beginning and the end, but it really is about someone else, this young kid who's a fan of real-life superheroes. And it turns out there were superheroes in the hack-slash universe. They didn't really have superpowers, but there was a group of people that wanted to fight crime, and when he recounts their story, we get to see it through the comic books of that time, so we get cool pages mimicking old comic books and old art styles and talking about the attitudes and comics of that time, and plus going way back in time in the hack-slash universe and maybe seeing a few familiar elements. It's a cool little idea, a cool little homage to history, and a fun little aside that will sort of ground the world we're going to get into when we get into the bulk of Super Sidekick Sleepover Slaughter. It's an interesting little story, again, not really a Cassie and Vlad story, but I see what they're doing and I see how they're setting up the world, and towards the end of it, there is something that gets explained as well that's a fun little wraparound and a fun little twist that I won't spoil. But overall, it is a side piece, but I think it will serve a greater function, and it is a fun little different story. So not super important, but an interesting idea. I guess without further ado, let's switch to the close-up camera. I'll show you guys some of the story and the art. I'll try to be avoiding major spoilers, but without further ado, let's switch to the close-up camera. Alright, here we are inside the castle, taking a closer look at Hack Slash Super Sidekick Sleepover Slaughter, the prologue. Yeah, that is quite the mouthful. Anyway, we're once again inside Omnibus 3. Let's bring this closer to the camera. We're written, of course, as always, by Tim Seeley, but if we flip over to the art credits, we notice something interesting. The main bulk of the story has only one artist, Dan Leister. However, in the prologue section, he's joined by 3 additional artists, Chris Burnham, Ross Campbell, and Jason Millet. Now, I think the deal is you have the prologue section with Cassie, and then you have the party section, and then you have 2 sections that take place in different comic book time periods. So I think that's how it's divided, and I wish we got a page-by-page credit, you know, like this section by who, so we would know. But, yeah, 4 different artists this time around. Anyway, flip it to the cover, and we get this fun image of a bunch of superheroes, and there's Cassie there at the bottom. There's a little blurb with the story's title, and this is cover 29A by Tim Seeley and Rachel Rosenberg. And, yeah, we may notice that the credits in the front of the book divide out the prologue. However, the stories in the back do not. I kind of wish they had divided them out, but whatever. You can tell pretty much where the prologue ends. Anyway, after that, we get into the story proper. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points and make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what the story's about. I'll try not to go too far, and I'll try not to ruin the end, though. Anyway, we open up with Cassie and Vlad in the car, and I will say this artist draws Cassie about 5 or 10 years younger than she normally looks. I think it's those big anime eyes, which, yeah, I don't mind. It just, it is noticeable. But anyway, they're listening to Late Night with Alan Knight again, and she tries to wake Vlad up to tell them that they're on the radio. They're talking about the serial killer again. However, Vlad's too sleepy. Well, they get a new caller, and the new caller says, talk about real heroes, talk about the real superheroes. Well, where is this call coming from? We jump to a house party in New Jersey where a bunch of people are hanging out, and while it turns out the caller is at this house, he's not really too interested in partying antics. This girl comes in and asks what he's doing, and he explains that he's drawing a bunch of superheroes, and it turns out she's really into this, but he has something to reveal to her. superheroes aren't just for fun. There was apparently a real wave of superheroes. He has some news articles to prove this, and it turns out why they never had any actual superpowers. They were out there fighting crime, and his favorites were Nightmare and his sidekick Sleepy. We then turn the page and we get to see the art style has gone into that of an old comic book, complete with torn edges and faded printing. Nightmare's there, he's the one that looks like a skeleton, really cool design, and Sleepy's a sidekick, and they're fighting the undying jack-o'-lantern. Now, does that seem a little bit familiar to you? We then go into the comic, and it turns out there's this gangster who messed with a mysterious cult, and now he's been threatened to be killed, so they're there to stop the assassin. Well, there's a pumpkin on the front porch that distracts Nightmare, and he goes to check it out. Gotta love that skull face. Nightmare sends Sleepy to go check on the target. He's in the bedroom, but it turns out that's where the assassin is waiting for them. And yeah, do got to love seeing this old-timey version of Sam, but however, Nightmare is going to show up and put up a fight. I won't spoil how that story ends, but I will say that major stuff happens and it kind of leaves us on a cliffhanger, and then we jump to this sort of 90s style comic, really cool colors there, and we get to see Nightmare and Sleepy going after this nun character, but who's that in the background? Gotta love their cool, kind of 90s-esque Batmobile, this panel of them running into the distance, and there we go, a much more familiar version of Sam for them to fight. Anyway, I do like that Hack Slash got to kind of pay tribute to the old-timey comics, and I do like introducing the superhero stuff, plus the idea that Sam has a long and complex history. We already saw that with Cat Curio, but now we're seeing it again here. And the way that he can show up multiple times throughout this sort of history, that's pretty fun. I did find it a little bit sad that they were only able to parody 2 timelines, because there's so many different periods and styles of comics, but at the same time this was only 1 issue and you did have to keep the story focused, because what happens at the end of the first story impacts the second, but we also have the present timeline as well. So that's a good 3 balance there, and I feel like if we had tried to do too much in only 1 issue, it would have got disorganized. So sad they couldn't parody more comic times, but you know what? For what we got, it was pretty fun. I am really excited to jump into the main part of Super Sidekick Sleepover Slaughter, and that will be actually the last part of the original Devil's Due series for Hack Slash. Don't worry, they would get picked up by Image and we would get to see what happened next in part 4, but this is the penultimate story, and now on to the finale next time. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you, you really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist at the bottom. This should be my Hack Slash playlist, where you should be able to find my reviews for most of the past entries in this series. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.